Hello, friends, and welcome back to another set of malicious compliance stories. This one's for everyone who's ever been laid off by a company that called you family. When this longtime employee was told he couldn't pack his own desk, he decided to make HR regret every word. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. How one man made HR work for every ounce of his energy drink. Way back in 2011, I got laid off from a publishing company that I'd expected to retire from, after working there for 14-ish years. When I was marched into HR, it was explained to me that my entire department was liquidated and I was not allowed to re-enter the work floor, and all personal effects at my desk would be safely collected and UPS to my house within 24 hours. I was known as the collector dork in the IT department, a feat, I know, and people would give me all sorts of limited edition stuff, mini statues, Funko Pops, loot crate items, etc. Though I never yelled at anyone for messing around at my desk, it was known not to fart around in my work area because something might inadvertently get broken. And since many things ultra rare, nobody wanted to take that chance. Honestly, most were just dorky trinkets, but a couple years before, an editor knocked over an old Star Wars BK glass from the 80s and offered to replace it, though I said not to worry about it. When they found it on eBay, it ended up costing them around $50. My favorite thing was a mountain of 16-ounce Red Bull cans, thanks to a lot of double shifts and overnight projects. Instead of recycling the roughly 60 to 70 cans, we built a Red Bull wall between me and my neighbor's workstations, stacked and double-sided tape to the desk we shared. And sitting across from this stuffy HR woman, I had an epiphany. Can you guarantee that all the collectibles will be carefully disassembled and packed into those boxes before shipment? I have a lot of rare and fragile items that I'd much rather pack myself. That's out of the question. Unfortunately, none of the employees who were let go today can go back to their workstations due to the sensitive information in the system. Okay, well, I've been meticulously collecting vintage Red Bull cans over the last 5 years and displaying them between our desks. If one gets bent or damaged while being packed up, I'll need you to find the replacement can on eBay. It'd just be a lot easier to pack them myself. Some are worth more than $75 empty. She still refused. Literally 2 days later, I got 32 of 32 UPS boxes, each one the standard moving box size, and each one filled with 10 meticulously bubble-wrapped Red Bull cans with miscellaneous desk clutter filling in the gaps, as if they were headed to a museum curation. All of my other desk items were likewise wrapped, and Box 1 had an inventory spreadsheet of every item from my desk, down to 9 random Taco Bell sauces. I then made a video of crunching down the cans and dumping the entire box into my condo's recycle dumpster, and CC'd the entire company. I heard from a friend that still worked there that one of the warehouse managers, who I really disliked, spent almost 9 hours wrapping, inventorying, packing, and labeling every item from my desk. The company went bankrupt 2 years later and never came back. I'd like to believe I was a part of why, though I know it was from years of mismanagement and a refusal to go digital. I would have loved to see the face of the manager who had to spend all that time to make sure you got everything back undamaged, just for you to utterly destroy the cans and toss them out, as well as the face of the HR lady after you made such a big deal about the cans. And our second story. Neighbor complained my dog wasn't controlled. I'm complying by controlling the local dandelion population onto her lawn. My young dog is a herding breed, the kind that can't walk in a straight line if her life depended on it. She zigzags, loops around us, circles back, and generally treats every walk like she's keeping a flock of invisible sheep in line. She's energetic, happy, and yes, she never stops moving. The other day, my husband took her for a walk down our street. At one point, she brushed onto a neighbor's lawn, barely 2 feet off the road, on that little strip of grass that technically belongs to the city. Her paws were on it for maybe half a second before she was back on the sidewalk, nose twitching at something new. Enter our neighborhood's self-appointed lawn enforcer. This woman, let's call her Karen because, of course, came storming out of her house like she'd caught someone spray painting her car. She started yelling at my husband about respecting private property and controlling your animal. He tried to calmly explain that the dog didn't even stop, but she wasn't having it. When he ignored her and walked away, she took her fury to Facebook, posting about the disrespectful neighbors who let their dog run wild on other people's lawns. And because this neighborhood runs on gossip like a small-town soap opera, a few of her friends chimed in. Dogs belong in their own yards, one wrote. People these days have no respect for others' property, another added. I shouldn't have been surprised. A few years ago, I had to call the cops on her neighbor, the one across the street, after she literally chased me down the road screaming because she thought my dog looked aggressive. She came onto my property, banged on my door, and refused to leave until I called the police. After that little visit from law enforcement, she went quiet. But apparently she's since recruited Karen to carry on her noble crusade against me and my dog. I contacted my attorney and had a cease and desist letter sent to Karen outlining her harassment and the social media defamation. My lawyer says that'll probably be enough to make her think twice before tagging me in another rant, but honestly, it doesn't feel like enough. I'm not saying I believe in revenge, but I do believe in balance. And wouldn't it be a terrible shame if a sudden wind carried a few handfuls of dandelion seeds onto their pristine, obsessively maintained lawns? All those perfect emerald yards suddenly sprinkled with cheerful yellow flowers? Nature's way of reminding them that not everything can be controlled. We've got a big field behind our house full of dandelions. A whole jar of seeds, actually. Accidents happen, after all. Freeze beef bouillon in an ice cube tray. Toss a couple of cubes onto the lawn when nobody's looking. Wait a few days, then do it again and again. The cubes will melt into the grass. Your neighbor will have a beef-scented lawn. Every dog, possum, raccoon, and skunk in the neighborhood will think, there's food around here somewhere. Maybe I'll find it if I dig a bigger hole. The lawn should be shredded by the end of the summer. And our last story. She broke into my house, destroyed my things, tried to set my house on fire, was caught red-handed by the police. I changed my name when I was 14 and never looked back. The woman who birthed me, Raina, liked pain dressed up as discipline. I slipped out one night with a backpack, rode buses until I hit the Oregon coast, and learned how to be invisible. A couple of older runaways took me in, taught me which churches handed out hot meals, which alleys were safe. When CPS finally caught up to me at 15, 7 months pregnant, I told them I'd been born on the street and my parents were dead. A lie? Yep. A lifeline? Also yes. Foster care wasn't hugs and cocoa, but my placement in Seabrook was indifferent enough to breathe. My foster sister, Tasha, steadied me through labor, and we raised our daughters together until depression dragged her under when I was 21. She left a will naming me guardian. One judge and a mountain of paperwork later, I had 2 girls to mother and grief I carried like an extra lung. I got scholarship, stayed in Seabrook for college, graduated at 24, and took a job across the state in Pine City. We road tripped east with the windows down and a playlist we made together. I mapped our route to avoid the state I ran from, was proud of that bit of superstition, until day 7, 1,000 miles from my past, when the past stepped off a crosswalk and stared straight at me. Raina recognized me. Of course she did. Predators never forget the deer. She started shouting my old name, the one I buried, as if it were a spell to drag me backward. I pretended not to hear. My youngest squeezed my hand. My oldest, June, all fire, spun around and snapped, "Her name is Maya, not whoever you're yelling for. Leave us alone." I didn't scold June until later. Don't feed trolls. Don't give names. But I was mostly furious at myself for freezing. I hustled my girls to the car and put 300 miles between us that night. 6 months of quiet. I bought a little blue house on a hill, started dating a cop named Evan who brewed terrible coffee and could fix anything with duct tape. Then one morning, a knock at dawn. I opened the door and there she was, Raina, sinking to her knees on my doormat, weeping and praying loud enough to wake the neighborhood. "Thank you, Lord, for returning my baby." "You got the wrong house," I said, voice flat. "Leave." She howled louder. My middle kid, Sarah, held up my phone behind the door and mouthed 911. I nodded. Neighbors drifted out in robes. Evan rolled up with the responding officers. He'd heard the address and asked to tag along. I told the cops I didn't know the woman. Trespass citation, quick and clean. Raina's theatrics bought her a patrol car ride and me paranoia I hadn't missed. She moved into a rental 3 blocks away a month later. Restraining orders are paper fences. She tried to crash our wedding and got tackled by a bridesmaid in heels. Showed up at the hospital when our third daughter, Poppy, was born. Cornered me at the grocery store and tried to lift my baby from my arms, cooing about how mother will help you now that you've overbred. Evan pressed charges for violating the order. I added attempted kidnapping. The judge finally stamped permanent. We moved across the state line for Evan's promotion. New schools, new coffee shop, new library cards. I dared to exhale. 4 years later, on a Tuesday, the door opened while Evan was home with Poppy. We have cameras. I watched the footage enough to taste copper. Rena walked in calm as a church usher, tore family photos off the wall, smashed the TV, flipped drawers, then stepped back out and returned with a red gas can. Evan had already scooped Poppy and slipped out the back, calling 911, while Rena sloshed gasoline across the rug and up the stairs. She craned her neck and yelled, voice syrupy and hateful, "This is how God punishes daughters who keep mothers away." Blue lights painted the street before the match struck. They cuffed her on my lawn while I barreled home, 2 older girls crying silent tears in the back seat. The living room reeked of fuel. My hand shook so hard I couldn't dial. The DA didn't blink. Attempted arson, attempted murder, kidnapping, conspiracy, stalking, restraining order violations. When they searched a rental, they found notebooks, diagrams of our house, schedules. A plan that read like a horror movie. Kill Evan and the 2 oldest, then keep me and Poppy underground, where they'll finally learn obedience. She'd printed our school calendars and glued them in with hearts. In court, she'd tried the tears again. I was saving her from sin, she told the judge, eyes to the ceiling like God was her character witness. The prosecutor played the audio of her screaming about God's punishment. The jury took 4 hours. Guilty on everything. Sentencing day, the judge stared over his glasses and said, "Miss Carter, faith is not a license to burn a house with people in it." He gave her 25 years and a lifetime protection order that reads like a steel wall. On the way out, my mother craned to find me. "You'll come around," she hissed. I stood, 3 daughters at my side, and pictured the char line on our staircase where the gasoline didn't quite reach. "I already did," I said. "Around you." We bought new frames. We rolled the smoke-stained rug and dragged it to the curb. Trash hauled it away the next morning. Raina's letters stopped when the DOC blocked her mail. Evan taught June how to change a tire in the driveway last weekend. Poppy's learned to ride without training wheels. The house smells like lemon cleaner again. People think leaving abuse is a single decision, but this story shows what it really is, a lifetime of boundaries. Paper fences, legal fences, emotional ones. Every no is its own victory. It's not even about Raina's prison sentence. It's about a home that finally smells like lemon cleaner instead of smoke. That's how peace looks after you've walked through hell. Ordinary, domestic, and completely yours. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.